Ever since I started Skyward, it's really just made me feel like I'm reading Ender's Game. And when I got to Starsight, that just magnified. And I want to talk about why this is reminding me of Ender's Game, why I think Starsight is the speaker for the dead of this Skyward series, and then maybe help us understand where things are going. I'm not entirely sure, but let me explain what my thought process is here. So, I think the parallel between Skyward and Ender's Game is pretty obvious. You have this pilot that, I'm saying pilot. You have the main character who wants to succeed, but is really this outcast in school. And the outcast is not necessarily because of who they are, but because of what the school is forcing them to be, right? Like in Ender's Game, Ender is just, he comes with a bit of an outcast. He's a little bit smaller than everybody. He's young. And then he gets promoted rapidly through the ranks, and they're intentionally trying to make him this outcast. And then you have the same thing going on here in Skyward, where you have the defiant leaders who are just forcing, just in Skyward, just the most ridiculous circumstances. And, of course, then you had the whole part of training for a battle. You're fighting these aliens. They kind of have a bugger appearance to them, not appearance, but the way they coordinate, very much like what you see in the buggers. And then it ends with that dramatic victory. Then shoot forward 6 months to Skyward or Starsight. I keep switching these two books in my mind, and it's irking me a little bit right now. But Starsight, one, I was disappointed because I thought Starsight was going to be the name of that cytonic thing that you did, because you would see stars up there, even though they're eyes. Two, it just really reinforced this Ender's Game theme. So, what happens in Shadow of the Dead, Speaker for the Dead? Well, you have Andrew Wiggin arriving on a foreign planet, being introduced to the first alien species since the buggers, and really trying to figure out what's going on there. There's this unknown threat. The piggies are not a threat yet, but there's this concern that they're going to be a threat. And then, so you have the encounter with another alien species. Also, what's happening in Starsight. You have the fact that Ender has this reputation. Andrew is coming to this planet with this baggage, with this reputation of being Ender the Genocide. But when he arrives, he's in a disguise, right? He's Andrew Wiggin, and he's so far separated in time from that past person that people aren't making that connection with who he is. And so he's there in disguise, and he's observing what's going on in this town in that context of knowing that he is Ender, and other people don't know he's Ender. We see the same thing in Starsight, right? You arrive, you're in camouflage, you've got this baggage of being human. Other people don't know that you're human. And so you're going through that entire system with that camouflage going on, right? And then, just another really, just like almost too coincident of a parallel is M-Bot being more present in this book than in the first one, right? M-Bot was there in Skyward. There was conversations. He had the walkie-talkie every once in a while. But he wasn't just like this ever-present, like talking to him all the time character. He becomes much more of that character in Starsight, where he's interacting a lot more, where he is just participating a lot more. But then you have the fact that he gets turned off, and he's really upset about that, tries something drastic to get out of that. To me, that just really spoke to Jane in Speaker for the Dead. This AI that's there, right there with Andrew, to help him in all these situations and get him through everything he needed to do. And this is where you have this really interesting connection, because the way that the Ender series goes is that Jane eventually is liberated from the AI, and it turns out she's actually an entirely different alien species. She had been caught up in the why can't I think of the faster than light communication, starts with an A, right? Anyway, she gets caught up in that web. She gets put in as an AI. She's believed to be an AI, But then it turns out she's her entirely own alien species and she has to be released. And the only way she can be released is because there's this threat that they're going to shut down all the networks and they're going to destroy her. I think M-Bot is going to go the same way. And I think that because this really feels like Brandon Sanderson's commentary on Ender's Game. Maybe not commentary is probably too strong of a word, but his take, his perspective, his what if I wrote Ender's Game and the Ender series, what would I do? And another theme that comes from this. The reason why I really feel like this is because the theme in Starsight is having empathy, right? It's the fact that you need to learn that these aliens are not just enemies, right? She's going around, she realizes she has this really cynical view everywhere she's going and feels like she has, everyone's an enemy. Oh, that person must be a spy. This person has a strange smile. And then she gains empathy through the story and realizes that these aliens are her friends, that these people they're trying to be welcoming to humans. They're trying to have empathy. And she has to gain that empathy so that way she can be on the team with them. And that is like the Ender's Game. At least Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead are all about empathy, right? You have that idea that to understand your enemy, you have to love them. You get to the piggies and you have to understand that they're not trying to kill or torture humans, that they're actually trying to accept them into their culture, and they thought that they were doing something they were supposed to be doing, right? All of that is empathy and trying to understand somebody else's perspective. So again, it feels like these are supposed to be Ender's Game books, but the Brandon Sanderson take. And what's the uniquely Brandon Sanderson take? Way bigger world, right? You have all these different alien species. You have a much bigger world built into what's going on with the space. Sorry, I'm kind of lost for words right now. That's what Brandon Sanderson, his trademark is the world building, right? And I feel like he has a little bit more of a vision of where the books are supposed to go. I don't feel like Orson Scott Card has that vision. In fact, I think Orson Scott Card's primary weakness is that he has really good beginnings to arcs, and then the last book just always flops. That happened in the Ender's Game series. The last, Children of the Mind, is just like a really strange book. That happened in the Pathfinder books. Really cool intro. All right, middle book. Last book, Visitors, is that what it was? What in the heck happened in that book? So I feel like Brandon Sanderson is putting his stamp on this by having a little bit planned out, more idea of where the arc is going to go, and it's definitely more targeted towards that YA audience. Orson Scott Card did not have this YA group when he was writing, right? Like, YA fiction wasn't really a genre back then. This feels much more like a YA book, but it also kind of feels like the weakness of the Skyward series, because I just feel like the emotional potency of Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead is much stronger than what I'm getting from Skyward and Starsight. The empathy that you learn, like a lot of those lessons just really resonate still. Even though in Ender's Game he's 10 years old and you're having a book about a kid, you're having really serious insights that last a lot longer. And I'm not getting that same feeling from Skyward or Starsight. So, I mean, I think they're great books. I think they've been really exciting. I really like Skyward. Starsight was fine. It didn't captivate me as much. But now that we understand where the comparisons are between Ender's Game and the Skyward series, it kind of helps us see where this next book could go, because remember what I said, there was this perceived threat of Jane. Hold on. One more parallel is the key to faster than light travel, right? Like, Jane was the key to faster than light travel. There was this, like, we have to figure this faster than light travel out so that way we can survive, so that way we can escape these things. But you're having, like, it flipped around, right? Like, it's not quite flipped around. You have the humans are on this little planet and they're going to come and attack, and they have to figure out faster than light travel, but their enemies already do in Skyward and Starsight. In Ender's Game, I guess Speaker for the Dead, when they're on that planet, they're trying to figure out faster than light travel so that way they can escape the forces that are coming to suppress the planet because of the threat of aliens, right? So again, a lot of parallels here. So where does that mean that this can go? Well, with that threat in Speaker for the Dead and Xenocide, Children of the Mind, that Jane is a bigger threat than even the piggies or the resurrected buggers. They came down and they're trying to destroy Jane. And I feel like M-Bot's going to have a similar arc because there's just this incessant harping on the Destroyers really hate advanced AI. There's no explanation. Like, they hate Cytonics and they hate advanced AI. It makes sense why they hate Cytonics, right? Cytonics are coming in, they're making lots of noise. It's really bothering the Destroyers. So I understand that. I feel like we got much more exploration into Cytonics in this book. We're going to understand more about advanced AI. What it was, the advanced AI. Why were they like such a big problem for Destroyers? What's going on here? And we're going to have that step from M-Bot being an AI to M-Bot being possibly another alien species. Is he a vapor? It seems like we would know, like, that would be understood, but it's definitely highlighted that M-Bot is vapor tech. Is he a vapor that's been stuck inside of that ship? We're not sure. I think that's a little bit too far, but this idea of like what makes somebody alive, what makes somebody a being, like those themes have already come up in Starsight, and I think we're going to see that completed in the third book, where there's going to be that threat, and the only way to escape that threat is for that self-actualization, for him to become that other being. And then we're going to see either that he's a vapor, is that maybe it's not that he is a vapor, maybe that's life before vapor, I don't know. We're going to find out more about advanced AI. Why is it that the Destroyers don't like advanced AI, and how is M-Bot going to progress? How is he going to make it to his next stage? That is why this feeling about Ender's Game, I feel like that's setting up the stage for the third book. It makes it more understandable. Back on that empathy point again, remember how she destroyed the Destroyer, or at least distracted the Destroyer? Empathy, right? Like helping them understand that humans are people. Anyway, they jump into the nowhere. Is that what it's called? I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry. I finished these books a few weeks ago, and already a lot of these details have escaped. So a nice, interesting cliffhanger on where the third book's going, but I just really feel like M-Bot and what is an advanced AI, what is a person, and how do you make that transition from AI to self-actualized being? That's going to be a big theme in this next book. So I'm excited. I think it was a good book for a dad to read. I mean, that's the question here is this a book dad should read? Yeah, I definitely think it was interesting. The other day, my kids were in a Zoom call with their charter school, and they asked students what they were doing. I don't know how old the student was that responded, but she said that she had just read Skyward. And that made me think like, oh, that's good, but that is also a book I just read. And I enjoyed it a lot. So I think other dads could definitely enjoy this. If you like Ender's Game, this is a book that could definitely be up your alley, and it could be a book that you share with your kids. It's something that is going to be captivating, interesting, lots of fun stuff going on. I really enjoyed the book. I don't think it's going to be it doesn't have the permanence of Ender's Game and that whole series, because of the themes are just much stronger and they're just so powerful in Ender's Game. I'm not picking them up as much in depth in Starsight and Skyward, but it's still a fun read. So dads who read, go ahead and check out Skyward and stay pumped for the next series, or in the next book in the series. And if you're interested in more books on what dads should be reading, or dads should be reading with their kids, go ahead and check out my other videos, and please subscribe, because they'll love to have you on this channel. Drop me a comment below. We'll see you in the next video.